Thank you for pressing start on episode 57 of Underplayed, KZUM's indie video game podcast. Today we have 2 secret games, followed by a review of our featured game, Castle Crashers Remastered. Here on Underplayed, we review indie games of all kinds, the games with small budgets but big hearts, the lesser-known experiences with imaginative ideas. I'm Bo Poe, and now joining me is a guy with Big Dad Mode energy, taking you on in River City. He is here to spread joy and transform a toy. It's your berserk boy, DiscoCola. What is going on?
I'm feeling electrified, Bopo. You've got such an electric energy emanating from you today, so I'm so ready for this episode. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. My Green Knight is a very boring reference, just very straightforward.
But we both referenced each other's colors.
We did, yes. Those are references to our featured game, Castle Crashers Remastered, and DiscoCola played as the Green Knight. I played as the Red Knight for that game. This was our co-op game that we played for Season 6. We played it early for the season.
Yeah.
We've never played a co-op game this early for a season.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of a mistake just based on scheduling issues, but otherwise...
You know, you live and learn.
Yep.
So maybe in future seasons we'll put co-op games at least toward the middle.
Yeah.
At the earliest, but we made it work for now.
We figured it out.
And we knocked it out during sort of like our quote unquote break between seasons.
Yeah.
So it's one less thing we have to worry about logistically later. But we played that game with a family member and a friend. And that was just a great 4-player co-op experience. We'll talk about that whole playthrough later in the episode. But for now, here at the top of the show, we're going to do something we've done now for a couple seasons in a row. It's where we are checking in on upcoming indie games we're looking forward to. So these can be games that have a release date. Maybe they don't have a release date. Maybe they just have a release window or it's not announced. This is a non-exhaustive list. We each are looking forward to probably dozens of games all told. But I think all these games in each of our lists, every time we do this, they're games we haven't really talked about in this section before. Starting off, I know one that was just recently announced that applies to both of us is Slay the Spire 2.
Yeah.
This was announced during the Triple I showcase. Any thoughts or hopes for Slay the Spire 2?
Well, I do have a hope, actually, because the trailer does not have the automaton. What's his name?
Yeah, the Defect.
The Defect, and he was my favorite. So my hope is that the Defect is in there. I went back and I listened to that episode after that trailer dropped, actually, of Underplayed. And I mentioned in that episode that the Defect has some ties to the Spire in some way based on some of those books that we occasionally pick up and read.
Oh.
But I didn't explore that. I'm bad at the game, so I didn't get the full depth of that. So the Defect has something special going on with him story-wise, but I don't know why he's absent from the trailer.
Maybe we fight the Defect.
Ooh.
That would be sad.
That's some Mega Man stuff right there, baby. Come fight Zero.
We did get the Watcher in there.
Yep.
We got the Ironclad. We got the Silent.
Yep.
I think all those were in there.
I don't think the Watcher was in there. There was like a skeleton.
Not. There was like a
Spectre skeleton
with a scythe.
figure. Yeah.
Yeah, like a Grim Reaper sort of character. So new characters to play as. That'd be fun. I guess I'm just... What am I hoping for with Slay the Spire 2? Maybe more of a balance with some of the shop stuff, like and using your resources and your money, because it just felt like in Slay the Spire 1, I so often wanted to buy a lot of things with my hard-earned money, and I could only afford like one thing at a time. I think that was part of the hardcore nature of the game. You know, it makes sense, but maybe just a little rebalancing there. And then maybe just like more characters, more kinds of builds. And it looks like with the Grim Reaper sort of character, if that's someone we play as, that maybe that's a new style. That's a new deck.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd
be fun.
And then, you know, we're doing this on episode 2 of every new season, going back and forth, sharing a game one at a time that we're looking forward to. What is a game you're looking forward to, Disco?
So this one currently is on Kickstarter at time of recording. By the time this episode comes out, it'll be that window will have closed by a good deal. But it is called Moon Samurai, and it's a pixel art side scroller. Shocker. Um, but it's a pixel art platformer. Sort of visually reminds me of Narita Boy. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's a little bit more futuristic than Narita Boy. And it just looks really fun. It comes from I believe they're called Nunchaku games. I really hope it works out. I really want it to come to fruition.
Yeah, they've got hundreds of backers already, but they still have a ways to go on their goal. By the time this episode airs, this Kickstarter will be over with. So we hope that these developers can make this game work. But what they're showing here is really cool. It's very cyberpunk, very action oriented, beat 'em up style.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like kind of a throwback style while also looking futuristic. So I like that intersection a lot. My first game I want to mention is called Miniatures. And this is a game I played during Steam Next Fest. This is an anthology game of sorts where I think it's 4 different stories that play out. And I only got to play one of the stories during the demo, but it's just a very low key approach to storytelling and to interaction. You're really just clicking on things and bizarre things happen. You're just interacting with like these small objects and making fantastical things happen. I don't really know what the game is or like what it means, but I love the art style. It's got this hand drawn
Yep.
approach. It's by Other Tales Interactive. And the description on Steam says 4 unique adventures await, each with its own story, hidden in a mysterious box. Explore, interact, and watch the world transform in this captivating anthology. So I think it's just about picking up these small objects, and then those objects transform this silent world, or I should say speechless world. I didn't notice any speech happening in the demo I played. So it's a very visual game. It's a very interesting, like weird game too. So I don't know. It seems like something that a lot of people could mess around with and have
Yeah.
fun with.
Yeah, looks awesome. Looking forward to that one myself. My next one, you know about this one already. Rollin' Rascal. This was in Kickstarter a little while back, and they obliterated their goal in like 2 days. I was broke when it was open, so I didn't get a chance to back it like I really wanted to. But this is sort of like a 3D Sonic like, and it's really focusing on the movement and platforming element, which is not what all 3D Sonic games tend to really do. There's a lot of like action inputs, and the game will just guide you through those big sections, but you're in control the whole time, it looks like in Rollin' Rascal. And yeah, it looks really good. I don't know that I'll ever be good enough to play it, but I do think that it looks better than most of the Sonic 3D games I've seen. And I've already seen some people just like really teching the heck out of it and just like skipping entire sections of the game because they're masters of the speed mechanics. And it's nuts.
Yeah, this is got a demo. I've not played it yet, but you can just go ahead and download the demo now. It's to be announced, no release date, no release window. I'm seeing in one of the previous screenshots you're grinding on a rail. That's reminding me of Sonic. It's reminding me of Ratchet and Clank. You've got this beautiful sunny like seaside village. It just looks beautiful. Amazing. My next pick is called Summerhill, and this is something we learned about in a showcase last year. There's so many dang showcases, I don't even remember which one, but this is a story-driven puzzle game in which you play as a young shepherd and their dog journey across an ancient pastoral landscape to reunite your scattered flock and unearth the mysteries of a long-forgotten past. This is a puzzle, exploration, action-adventure game. I think it's also another one that's probably wordless, and it's isometric. You've got the camera pulled back. You've got lots of warm lighting and pastoral visuals. And this looks like a game that will maybe make us cry.
Yep. If I had to
it's
guess.
I think it's going to involve some folklore and gentle puzzle solving. It also might look like there's some secrets lurking beneath this world. Like at first you look at this world and it's a shepherd finding their sheep and, interacting with their dog, but maybe they stumble upon some kind of a world under the ground. I don't know. It looks like this game is a little mysterious,
Yeah.
and I want to find out what's lurking beneath all of this. Or maybe there's nothing. Maybe it is what it is on the surface, and I still would enjoy that.
I agree. Cool. That looks awesome. My next one that I sent to you was Hayaku Island of Darkness. This is a bit of apparently it's a Metroidvania. It's a modern retro pixel art game that is visually somewhere between 8 and 16-bit. I don't think it's exactly one or the other. But it seems to have a lot of elements of gameplay inspired by Mega Man's. Shocker. But it looks really fun. And I'm excited to see where it goes. Kind of also looks like one that you would have fun with too.
Yeah.
It's just like the movement mechanics look like they're pretty solid.
I could get down with this, yeah.
Just based on how the trailer looks. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think the character designs are good. Pixel art's good. Boss designs seem fun. And just it seems fun.
This is to be announced, no release date, but I'm noticing like in the title on the Steam page, it's called Hayaku Island of Darkness. But then in the preview thumbnail, it's called Hayaku and the Island of Darkness.
Uh-oh.
Interesting. I just always find those differences interesting.
Womp womp.
My next one is called Wood and Weather. It's kind of a god simulator where you're looking over this town of wooden block toys.
Oh, yes. Okay, I've seen this.
You've seen this? I might have shown you this, actually. This is another demo I played at Steam Next Fest last year. I remember weather playing a role in this, and you can change the time of day and the weather, I believe. But a lot of it is just like kind of a sandboxy scavenger hunt kind of game where you realize that these little toy figures need certain tasks done, and so you have to figure out how do you solve their tasks using this world that they're living in. But yeah, I remember having a lot of fun with this, and it seemed really polished, even though the game still says it's coming soon with no release date. So I have to imagine they're just continuing to polish it. So there you go.
Up next, I'm looking forward to Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo. So this is a pixel art top-down adventure. It seems to draw a lot of inspiration from the more classic Zeldas, but instead of swords and arrows and elfie-shaped creatures, it's yo-yos and chibi animal-shaped creatures. So I'm looking forward to that. There's a little bit of like puzzle solving going on too, using your yo-yo to traverse like angular puzzles, just sort of like pinballing kind of. I think it looks really fun, and I think it's something that I'd like to try.
And this is not the last time we'll hear Pipistrello in this episode, actually. That's a name that shows up in Castle Crashers. I really like the color palette of this game.
Yeah.
It looks
it's really delightful to look at.
My last one in my list for today is Grun. And Grun is from Sock Pop Collective. I don't know if you know about Sock Pop Collective, but this developer is very prolific. If you go to the Steam page for this developer, you'll see that they have developed like over 80 games or something like that. I think a lot of them are very small, but
who has that kind of time even?
They have a lot of releases out there. This is my first one that I have looked into this much, but this is supposed to be out in 2024. And the synopsis says, a gardener gets hired for maintenance work over the weekend, a simple task, but strangely, some tools are missing. The owner of the garden isn't around, and their house is off limits. Perhaps new tools can be found in the mysterious town, or maybe some of the reserved townsfolk have seen them. So this is again continuing my theme of being interested in these mystery games, these like enigmatic games. In this case, it's first person, and it's got a style visually that kind of reminds me of Sludge Life, where it's a little low poly and kind of grungy with its look, but maybe a little cleaner than Sludge Life.
Yeah, it's like fuzzy, edges are strange.
Yeah. Like someone turned off the anti-aliasing on purpose, and that's the intended visual style of the game. It's kind of got a visual style I have not seen. You're in the first person using these gardening tools, and I just want to know, again, what's hiding beneath this interesting surface. So,
Yeah, a lot of stylized stuff on your list this time.
yeah, that's what's catching my eye. I just want to be like intrigued with my games. Yeah.
I want something interesting. I want to feel something.
Yeah. I think that was the last
Yeah,
of all
that's
of
the
our
last
games.
one, I think.
Would you mind just recapping your list of 4 games?
Oh, sure. So for me, the ones that I'm looking forward to the most are Rollin' Rascal, Moon Samurai, Hayaku, and the Island of Darkness, and Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo.
And then the ones I mentioned were Miniatures, Summer Hill, Wood and Weather, and Grun. And I also wanted to just shout out Slay the Spire 2, which was at the top of our list as something we're both looking forward
Yeah,
to.
this is our Hades 2 of this season.
Yes, our Silk Song of this edition of games we're looking forward to in the indie space. Before we move on, if you're listening to Underplayed right now, thank you, and we love you. If you haven't already, please consider giving us a follow and a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It should only take a few seconds, and we'd really appreciate it. And if you have a friend who likes indie games, maybe share our podcast with them too. It's time for our secret games.
Secret games. Secret games. Secret games. Secret games.
In Secret Games, we're each going to reveal a game we've been playing in secret these past few weeks. We're going to review that game, and I have no idea what DiscoCola's been playing. He doesn't know what I've been playing. We will start with you, DiscoCola. Let the mystery be no more. Reveal that secret game you played for this episode, which is episode 57 of Underplayed.
My secret game this episode is a co-op game, and
Whoa.
it comes from 1P2P Studio and published by the Arcade Crew, and it is called Young Souls.
Young Souls.
Yes.
I've never heard of Young Souls.
Well, it's been something I've been looking for an excuse to play for a couple years now, so I'm glad to have finally played it. But I sent you that trailer, and you can watch that while I go on.
Sweet. And you said 1P, 2P Studio?
Yeah,
Is that in reference to like 1-player, 2-player?
it seems to be the case.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool. I
just
will-
just based on their visual logo, like that, they're leaning heavily into that.
So you played this with another person who is not me.
Yes, that's true. I played this with my brother, who has decided to go by Sir Quokka.
Okay, this is the other brother that didn't play Castle Crashers
Other
with us,
brother,
just
yes.
for the audience's awareness.
So
yes.
I have two brothers, and they are twins, which plays a role in this game because Young Souls follows teenage twins Jen and Tristan as they embark on a journey to save their adoptive father, who is simply called the Professor, after he disappeared, seemingly in connection with goblins.
Ooh,
goblins.
whoa.
So it's the job of the twins to rescue the Professor and protect their town from what seems to be an impending goblin invasion. Now, this may sound like it's some sort of medieval story, but really it isn't. The game takes place in our modern era and world. However, underneath the city is an entire goblin society. And pretty quickly we meet Baldwin, who is a friend of the Professor that also happens to be a goblin. And he assists us in learning about the goblin world and how to keep ourselves alive as we raid the different dungeons in this goblin world. So as the twins play their way through the dungeons, the player is treated to observations and a lot of quippy dialogue from the twins. These guys are really rambunctious and obnoxious, just your typical teenager that's probably been through a lot. So you're going to get a lot of F-bombs in this game, but it feels appropriate. But you are also treated to intermittent exposition and plotting provided by the ruling goblin, whose name is Dwarven Goblin, and all of his followers. So this game is actually really focused on its story. And then as far as gameplay goes, this is a 1 or 2 player beat 'em up game with a lot of RPG elements. You have your usual light attack, your sort of like magic attack that you build up over time, and some sort of traditionally reliable heavy damage weapon with a cooldown. This could be like a bomb or an HP leeching field or a bow and arrow. So you get access to those as you unlock them throughout the game. Now, I mentioned it's 1 or 2 player, as the developer name suggests, 1P, 2P.
Yes.
If you play 1 player, you control your choice of Jen or Tristan with the option to quickly swap between the two by pressing the L1 button on PlayStation. So essentially, you would have 2 different HP bars and your choice between 2 types of builds at any given time.
If you play as one of them and they go down, do you just automatically switch to
You
the other?
automatically
Okay.
switch to the other one, and as the other one, you get a chance to revive your fallen sibling, and they'll be able to be called back again a couple more times. You
Okay.
do have lives, so if you go down too much, you're just done.
And how much of this game did you play 1 player versus co-op?
I played, so I think our total game clock was about 11 or 12 hours maybe, and I did about 2 hours solo.
Okay, it's a fair amount.
Yeah. Managed to do most of it with Quokka, but not all of it. So that's what it's like if you play as 1 player. If you play 2 player, you can still build your respective twin however you want, but when you press the L1 button, you will teleport to your comrade's position and perform a devastating slam attack. This happens in 1 player as well. However, most of the times when you'll be using this in 1 player, it will be likely to preserve one of your lives and prevent one of the twins from dying. Playing this and doing this in 2 player, it's a strategic way to stun an enemy. So it's really useful in that sense. Instead of swapping, you're just performing this cool co-op slam attack. While playing in 2 player, you will also share all of your resources collected, including gold, clothes, armor, weapon, potions.
Oh, so you're constantly talking about like, do you want this? Oh, can I have that?
Yeah.
Or, what do you want to buy? I want to buy this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you both have access to it, but you can't both wear
Right.
X thing at the same time.
Right. If you buy something, that's for you, not for Quokka.
No, we both get to.
Oh, you both
like
get it.
yeah. Even when we purchase clothes, it changes to the shape of our body.
Right.
We just can't both equip the same thing at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So like if I wanted a chance to be the heavy person instead of the quick fast person, we could swap armors if we wanted to.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. It sounds like this game is creating lots of opportunities to, make decisions together.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah, there's a lot of pros and cons to playing 1 player versus 2 player, but I do think one is a little bit better than the other, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So yeah, I think that's a relatively succinct way to set up Young Souls. So moving on, here's what I like about Young Souls. First and foremost, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the art style. I dished out the gold coin to get the physical copy of Young Souls from Limited Run Games, and this is almost 100% because of the art style and character design. Young Souls cover features all of my favorite Hyperlight Drifter colors at the forefront, and the game really didn't disappoint on this. The colors and character designs were always like fun to look at. I think if you had played Young Souls and you saw some sort of stylized drawing of Jen and Tristan in a different art style somewhere else, you'd be like, "Oh, hey, it's those twins from Young Souls." And in my book, if you can recognize a character or two in any variety of art style, that's a sign of good character design. Because Jen, she just has this like big poofy ponytail, and the sides of her head are shaved, and Tristan's head is shaved on the sides, and he's got this mohawk, and they both have. It's drawn as pink hair, but in the game they're called gingers. So it's pink, but representative of being a redhead, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyways, very, very distinct character designs, in my opinion. I also like the hack and slash gameplay. It feels good pretty much all the time. The juggling of enemies isn't quite as straightforward as our featured game today, but when you can pull it off, the benefits of slapping airborne enemies is significant and satisfying. I just love staying airborne with enemies. I've mentioned that a few times in different episodes. I also like that different stats, equipables, and level up options give you the opportunity to specialize your twin without becoming too specced to come back from the brink. So, for example, I equipped armor that increased my speed and weapons that didn't add significant weight. And I used my level up increases mostly on agility. Meanwhile, my brother Sir Quokka tended to keep stats balanced with a slightly larger focus on defense, and he equipped weapons and armor that had ranged attacks and high defense. And this isn't something like we agreed to do ahead of time, but it benefited each other and maybe fit our play style more.
Mm.
It's just nice that you can, unlike maybe Castle Crashers when you throw everything into strength and
Yeah.
find yourself at the end of the game unable to defeat certain enemies.
Right. I
Um,
need to use magic here.
Yeah.
I've now just dug
There's
myself into this hole.
nothing you
Yeah.
can do. In Young Souls, the only things that are permanent are your level up upgrades that you choose to do, and those aren't significant enough to like really screw you over later. Another thing I love about Young Souls is the feedback. At this point, I almost think it's mandatory for beat 'em ups to have some sort of either slowdown or rumble or screen shake when something significant happens, whether it be one of your comrades falling or a boss reaching the end of its current HP bar. Young Souls does this at all the right times and all the right ways. You almost never miss a significant combat beat. The only time I got lost is when I was looking at the wrong character, and that seems to be a me problem, given that I do the same thing in Castle Crashers, despite all of us being very different
distinct
colors. Yeah. I also love the way that Young Souls tracks completion. It will give you a percentage on your save file, which is
love that.
it's the main source of my completion, like good brain juice. But it will also show you which dungeons have which grade of chests that you still need to find.
Yes.
So you don't have to beat your head against the wall replaying stuff over and over, ultimately finding nothing. This is a good way to
Yeah.
respect my time.
Or start the game with a checklist
Right.
that you might not even know you need at
Yeah.
first. And then, which one did I get from this checklist?
Yeah. So all I have to do is pull up the in-game map and all of the treasure chest symbols are there. I just have to actually unlock the dungeon that it's in. Another like of mine, like the dev name suggests, playing in co-op, in my opinion, outweighs playing solo. You can totally complete the game either way, but the benefits of playing co-op vastly outweigh playing solo, in my opinion. While this would normally actually be a complaint, you are playing as twins, and certain story beats really emphasize partnership. So for a developer team that goes by 1P, 2P, they seem to have an incredible grasp of how to build a game that can be one player, but is also best played two player. And then the last thing I really want to praise is that Young Souls has certain humanitarian and or political topics that it explores that also happen to seem they're timely. And given that this game came out more than 2 years ago, I don't know whether to be sad or appreciative of that, but it did feel nice that our young characters in this game seemed just as cognizant as our real life current youths at the absurdity of the very idea of acceptance of war, violence, and inequity. So I really appreciate Jen and Tristan and their ability to understand that there are consequences for every single action that you take, and that might not necessarily affect you and affect other people in significant ways. So I really, despite the fact that they're very obnoxious teenagers, I do really like Jen and Tristan. Those are most of the really big things I loved about Young Souls. Again, with a lot of weight being on the incredible art style. I honestly, I could see this art style becoming almost as distinctive as like a super giant art direction in time. However, there are just a few things that I don't quite jive with me for Young Souls. First, and unsurprisingly, even though this game doesn't take place in a medieval world, there are still a lot of medieval elements to the story, and I cannot be bothered to care.
Yeah, that's just not a you thing.
There's goblins I have to beat, and there's runes I have to collect, and like Tristan even has a line in the game that suggests that like runes, they're just rocks. Who cares? Not me, not Disco. I don't care. This, like many other beat 'em ups, it's hard to like get on the right plane with your opponent. I don't think it's quite as difficult as our featured game Castle Crashers or even River City Girls at times. But it seems to have a little less forgiveness than a game like Scott Pilgrim. So I think I long for the day where there's a modern pixel art beat 'em up with 3 or 4 distinctive planar levels like Little Big Planet has.
Yeah,
Like you
sure.
just
You just
hop,
need to be on one of those.
just hop back and forth in a plane.
Or just make the window for, does my weapon hit this enemy that's close enough?
Yeah.
You know, can that just connect, please?
And I think that's where the difference is between like Scott Pilgrim and Castle Crashers is that window.
They're very forgiving, yeah.
Additionally, the camera in co-op mode is a bit unruly, namely in that it will specifically follow Tristan, who is default player 1,
Mm.
and it will zoom out a little bit to the point where it tries to get both characters on screen, but it doesn't zoom out enough for the size of the room, and Jen can easily disappear off of the screen pretty often, and you don't really get a good sense of whether your attacks are landing off screen or if you're picking up items off screen, because you're not necessarily getting those sound effects while you're off screen either. I don't really think Young Souls warrants having as much stuff as it has. I think there's about 6 too many of everything. There's like 6 too many weapons, there's 6 too many armor pieces, treasure chests, sneakers. You know, this adds a lot of like optional tasks for players that want a slightly longer game. But there was ultimately a lot that Quokka and I just like didn't use and we didn't see because we didn't need all of those things.
It can feel like clutter, and sometimes less is more
I
with
agree.
that stuff.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. This game has a parry mechanic that will actually play a really significant role in combat. However, the timing of it paired with the slowdown mechanics that I actually praise and love, it just can add a lot of speed bumps to gameplay, especially if you're playing 2-player, because maybe sometimes your partner will parry successfully and then your inputs are off because of that slowdown.
Okay.
So I do love the slowdown. I don't want it to be gone, but it does cause speed bumps elsewhere. And then lastly, at least on the physical PS4 version, maybe it would be different if it was on my hard drive. The game crashed an above average number of times for any game, specifically in the final boss battle.
Oh, no.
Which
Damn.
and the last save point before the final boss battle is like not difficult, but it's long.
Oh,
so
no.
you're losing like 3 minutes every time. So it's kind of a crappy time to crash. And there was another common bug that had Quokka and I falling through the floor after passing through a moon gate portal. This bug's not game breaking. You can just teleport to a different point on the map, but it happened a lot.
Yeah.
And it was funny.
It breaks the immersion. Yeah.
It was funny every time it happened.
Okay.
But it just,
Obviously not intended.
Yeah. So yeah, I think 1P 2P has effectively created a game with a great art style, a mastery of fun controls, and delightful couch co-op experience that has kind of permanently put them on my radar. And while 1P 2P has really put an incredibly strong foot forward for their debut game, there are still a few things here and there that could use some polishing. All the same, as far as co-op experiences go, for this almost antisocial introvert, Young Souls is a pretty good co-op experience that landed itself in my top 100,
Nice.
right next to Momodora, Reverie Under the Moonlight. And like Momodora, I will give Young Souls an 8.0 out of 10.
Wonderful. So I'm curious about what Quokka thought of the game. Do you have like high level observations about what was saying about it?
Yeah, so I actually we have an interview with him about that, and so I have that right here. I have his thoughts right here. All right, well, going off of like genre, it's not quite like a beat 'em up like Castle Crashers or Scott Pilgrim. It's close, but not quite. Where do you feel this ranks among those kinds of games? Because you played both Castle Crashers and Scott Pilgrim, right? Yeah. How do you feel about this compared to those?
So it definitely makes you think more than like Castle Crashers, because I do feel like Castle Crashers is just get out there, beat them up, and you don't have to think too much except for maybe the bosses.
Mm-hmm.
I think the scaling was decent until the final boss, and then it just cranked it up to 11. Oh, it ranks pretty high. I really did enjoy this. The art style was actually really amazing. Kind of sucked.
Blocking kind of sucked? Okay. Now, how much of that is blocking and how much of that is like slowdown of your partner dying or of like something else happening.
It's definitely a lot of just the block is unbalanced because when you want to block, there's just a delay to it almost.
Mhm.
You have to get used to the timing.
Right.
You can't just like instantly hit the block button and it's blocked.
So yeah, I agree with him for the most part. I didn't have as much trouble with the parrying, but he was the bigger defensive character, so he was doing a lot more parrying. So I would probably listen to him a little bit more. He's also better at games than I am, just in general. I would trust his word over mine most of the time as far as gameplay goes.
Well, I love that you were able to experience 2 co-op games with your brothers for this episode. That is super cool. I don't know that will ever happen again.
Yeah,
but
it's a huge nightmare trying to schedule this kind of thing when your free time is between 1 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. on a weekday. So
and just involving more than one person
yeah,
in an endeavor can just make it very complicated.
someday when my children are more independent, but not this day.
And then where can you play Young Souls?
Young Souls is available on Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, Windows, and then I played it on PS4 with the physical version from Limited Run Games. And this removed steep slope sliders from the Sega Saturn off of my top 100 list.
Oh no.
So RIP steep slope sliders, I still love you.
Not familiar myself.
It's
but
just a snowboarding game from the Sega Saturn.
Gotcha.
That's it.
It is time for my secret game. My secret game is called We Who Are About to Die. I just sent you the trailer.
Sounds dark. Okay.
Have you? I doubt you've heard of it, but have you heard of
No.
We Who Are About to Die?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, there's the trailer there.
Just based on the name, I'm thinking of Those Who Remain, but hopefully I'm wrong.
No, it's a very different game than
Okay.
Those Who Remain.
Okay. Well, I'll check out this trailer while you go on.
Cool. So We Who Are About to Die is an RPG roguelite, first released in 2022. And this game is actually still in early access.
Oh,
So I just
okay.
wanted to make that note up top. It has been out for a while now, but I just wanted to make that note that it is still being worked on.
Yeah, it's like a Slime Rancher 2 situation at the moment. It's just like it's been out for a while. but-
Yeah. And I think it's still in early access because it is developed by one person, Jordi Lakir or Lakire. I'm not exactly sure how to say his last name, so I apologize. But this game synopsis from the Steam storefront reads, quote, "Fight and strategize your way through spectacles and arenas. Rise from lowly slave to grand champion and earn your freedom, or die trying. This gladiator RPG roguelite features in-depth career management and a unique physics-simulated combat system. To those who are about to die, I salute you." End quote. This is a third-person gladiatorial combat game. It's set in the city of Tarantia. I don't think that's an actual city because when you Google it, you just get results for this game. So I think this city was just created for this game. But you control a gladiator who is given a name and a backstory, and your character is influenced by traits and stats and pieces of equipment, and you go into arena battles in gladiator settings, and you fight one-on-one versus another fighter, or sometimes one versus many battles where you're on a team all fighting one person, or you're one against many. And then also team battles where there are lots of teams kind of all fighting each other at once. And then there are like free-for-all sorts of battles. You fully control your character in We Who Are About to Die. This is truly like a simulation game, or as close as you could get to a gladiator simulator, where like you move your gladiator, you can lock on to enemies, but when you swing your weapon, you control what direction you swing. And so you use this to strategically hit enemies depending on like whether they're holding a shield or whether they're facing a certain direction. And so it's a hack and slash game, but it's very simmy. You know, button mashing doesn't really get you anywhere in this game. And so you need to spend time to figure out how the controls feel. So you take your time, you look for open windows, you have a stamina bar that every time you use an attack, that stamina goes down and then it quickly replenishes. And so you have to ration that stamina. You can't just mash buttons. And a lot of factors determine how much damage is dealt. Proximity to the person you're hitting, whether they're wearing a helmet and chest armor and arm guards and leg guards. There are lots of different factors that go into how successful you are. And as you fight in battles, you gain two kinds of currency. There's fame and there's gold. And those can both be used in many ways to improve your run, from buying equipment to healing yourself to even investing in future characters. If you get tons of gold, you can sort of pass some of it down to your next gladiator.
Can will it away.
You kind of can. And you can invest your fame into future shop offerings. So you get fame. You can say like after my next battle, I want the shop to offer weapons, or I want the shop to offer armor, and I want the offerings to be a certain rarity or quality level. So you can really specify what the shops offer you. And you can spend your gold in a lot of ways to keep your gladiator going so that you don't die. You can rank up your character. Just the more successful you are, you get these rank ups, and then you pick an upgrade. As you use your attacks, they level up. So this is a lot like Skyrim, for instance, where like if you use one-handed weapons in Skyrim, your one-handed skill is going to go up just because the game knows, oh, you're using that skill. We're going to level that up for you. That happens here. And then this is a roguelite. If you die in an arena, your character is gone, but you can have future characters inherit bonuses from past characters like extra starting money. And each fight you enter is overseen by one of 4 patrons. The patrons in this game are characters that give you passive bonuses. If you fight in a certain patron's arena a lot, your favor with them will go up, and they'll give you passive effects. But the more you choose one patron over the other 3, your favor with the other 3 goes down.
Oh.
So you have to kind of keep all those balances in check. If you want to keep everybody happy.
A great game for people pleasers.
Yes, it's hard. It's hard to keep them all happy in my experience. And sometimes when you're given a choice of battles, there's a patron who isn't available because it's all random. Sometimes you'll get 2 of the offerings will be for one patron, and then someone's left out. So
the Roman orgy is happening that day. They're unavailable. We can cut that.
No, they're at the bathhouse. Let's just say that. They're not at the brothel. They're at the bathhouse. And I also want to say, before I go into my thoughts, I want to give a big thanks and shout out to my friend Chris, who gifted me this game last Christmas.
Heckers, Chris.
Yes. I don't think you know Chris. I don't
Probably
think I've
not.
told you about Chris, but Chris is mostly an online friend of mine. And he hit me up around Christmas and he was like, hey, let's do a game exchange. I know you like indie games. I'd like to get you something. And I was like, amazing. And I think I got Chris Death's Door.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I
get
think that's
someone.
the one I got him, and he hadn't played it or really heard of it. So he was excited to get that. And then he gave me this game. We gave each other a list of options. And so I said, yeah, I'm good with all those. So he gave me We Who Are About to Die. And I thought, oh my gosh, no brainer. I should cover this on Underplayed. It's very much unlike other games I've played.
Yeah.
But here's what I liked about We Who Are About to Die. I really love the sheer number of options that you're given for improving your character or re-rolling your options in this game. You get tons of shop items. You get slots for extra equipment that you can't hold on your character. And so you have this like extra inventory space, and you can temporarily put things there between battles, and you can choose to swap out armor. So you can kind of have a stockpile of extra armor and weapons that you can switch to if you want. There are lots of passive effects for weapons and armor too. I found myself experimenting a lot through that extra inventory space. And then I was using my fame a ton to just re-roll my options or to find out more about the battles I was about to step into. So it's a little overwhelming at first, but this game really does, it's not like you have a shop, and you have a battle and you earn gold and then you spend that gold in the shop, you get fame and gold that can be spent in like dozens of ways. And
Mhm.
so some of that is a learning curve. You have to play a few runs to understand like all your options available to you. But when you get into the groove of it, it is a very open-ended feeling in this game. This game revels in the idea of death and trial and error. There's a screen in this game that you'll see. This game talks to the player a lot.
Okay.
And there's a screen where it says like, hey, just so you know, this game's kind of hardcore. This game is not called We Who Are About to Live. It's called We Who Are About to Die. And so the game is just owning that in a way that I really respect. The game knows that it's kind of hard. And my first few characters, I didn't survive very long because I didn't understand everything about the game yet. It took that trial and error. And so I just like that the game not only has that, but that it communicates that it's that way and makes me, the player, like understand, hey, this is what you're stepping into, just so you know. I love the look and the feeling of entering the arenas. Every time you pick an arena, there's like this really cinematic moment where there's some letterboxing on the top and bottom of the screen, and you're like, your gladiator is like entering that arena or going, they're like just behind the door that lifts up right before they go in.
Mhm.
And it's very cinematic. It's very like fun. The music is swelling. The audience, you hear the audience like roaring.
There's a little bit of that in Young Souls too. Yeah.
Yeah. So you feel like you're getting amped up to do this battle. There's lots of visual detail too. I think this game looks really great. It's very visually impressive, especially for a game made by one person. Another thing I like is that in these shops, you find lots of weapons and armor. And if a shop offers a piece of armor or a weapon that you haven't seen before, it'll be like kind of silhouetted with a question mark over it. And then you have to hover over it and press a button to reveal it. And the game is keeping track of how many total items you've discovered in the game. And there are over 200 items.
Okay.
And so this was like a fun little collection task for me, is like, how many items can I like discover through the shop?
You're stuck in Animal Crossing New Horizons again. You're
Yeah.
trying to collect all the different.
It is kind of like that. And some of the weapons and pieces of armor are a little samey, a little similar, but I liked seeing that number of like, oh, I have 100 out of 260 some in the game discovered. And then I eventually got, past 200. So I have that collection task in this game. I really like that. And then, I was playing this game actually really late last night, and I got a really good run. And when you get a good run going, you don't want to stop, or at least I don't. So I find this game addicting when you're in the groove with a character that is doing really well, and you find that right weapon that works. You find a couple pieces of armor that keep you alive. You can really just like keep going and going. Here are my dislikes with We Who Are About to Die. How the combat works is pretty nebulous. There's a science to it, and to break it down for one human brain is very difficult, at least for my human brain. Like, I don't understand always, like, what angle should I use? How close should I be? It can kind of be mysterious and literally hit or miss.
You're-
Sometimes,
You're not meant for the pits, Bopo.
well, I've played lots of action games, and what made sense to me at first when it came to my experience with other games didn't really fit for this game. Sometimes hits register, sometimes they don't, in a way that feels maybe inconsistent. This game kind of feels like when you control a unit in Totally Accurate Battle
That's
Simulator.
not what you want.
And that's the heart of the game, is you're controlling a character who's attacking people. And I just want this game to feel more precise. It feels a little floppy. It feels a little rough. I think that's by design. I think that's intended. I think it's supposed to be a little goofy. I think this game is supposed to be a little tongue in cheek, even though it is accurately portraying these pieces of armor, and there's a lot of, blood in this game. There's dismemberment. This game is violent, by
Yeah,
the way.
I can see
I
that.
didn't mention that, but this game is violent, like a Gladiator game probably should be, but it also is pretty goofy in how it moves. And I just think that feels like a mismatch for me. At first, I was overwhelmed with the amount of reading in the menus and all the systems I had to learn. It's kind of a lot at first. The first 2 hours or so of this game involves a lot of patience. And so I had to get over that to eventually enjoy this game more. There is a tutorial, but it doesn't prepare you for how much info will be thrown at you even after the tutorial. There's the fame system, your equipment, your stats, your upgrades, your buffs. It's a lot to absorb. It feels like you kind of have to study the game and go through some fodder characters before you can really like start a serious run. And that's what happened to me. I had to do like 3 or 4 characters before I felt like, okay, now I can take this run seriously. Any fighting involving more than one enemy attacking you, I found doesn't really work as well as just one-on-one combat. Also, you get fights where you have allies. You have like team on team battles, and allies can sometimes get in the way and get hurt by your own weapon swings. So I sometimes have to wait for them to move out of the way. I can't control where they go. They're AI, you know, they're computer characters. So I sometimes just have to wait for the group of people to disperse a little bit before I go in there and target an enemy. Then there are the rewards for victories, especially after harder battles that seem a little low. They seem like they're not rewarding me as much as maybe the risk I took to do those battles. I was getting really far in this run last night, and there were some battles that were offering me a lot of gold and fame, but then others that were only offering me like a little over 1,000 gold or a little over 2,000 gold, and that's not a lot of gold in this game. So at most, I would earn 10,000 gold for one battle that I found. Some pieces of equipment were costing 40,000 plus, and that's just one of 8 equipment slots on your body. And you have to pay for other things like healing, and weapons and armor have durability too. You have to spend gold to repair things. You have to fix stuff too. So all this stuff adds up, and I just feel like my rewards weren't adding up to my aspirations for, I'm finding like masterwork level items and godly items, and they look so cool. They do tons of damage. They protect me from tons of damage. I want to be able to afford them. And I'm in like week 25 of this game. In-game week 25 is like you've done 25 battles, you know, and I'm still not earning enough for some of this stuff. And then finally, the battle information before you go into a battle is obscured, and you have to spend your fame to reveal it. So you get 4 options of battles to go into, and the farther you get, the more they'll be obscured with like question marks. And the game forces you to spend fame that you've earned to uncover those details. I thought this was just an unnecessary barrier to showing me info about what I was stepping into. I think the game should just tell me my options. I don't really see the point of spending fame for that particular part of the game.
I think you're supposed to not know what you're walking into, and that you're being fed to the lions. And that's just life for you,
I guess
peasant.
I guess that is fair. But I got to the point where, you know, I wasn't earning a lot of gold, but I was earning a lot of fame. I was earning tens of thousands of fame like every few weeks. And to uncover these details, it's only like, you know, do you want to spend 200 fame to reveal this little part? And so there was another imbalance there where it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to spend this like insignificant amount of fame to reveal this stuff. Why am I doing that if I'm going to do it anyway? You know, so
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, We Who Are About to Die is ambitious as hell. It feels like it's really made with heart by this solo developer. This game asks a lot of your patience, and it's very honest in how steep of a learning curve it has. I think this game has a lot of depth, but the gameplay can feel a little lackluster, and some odd choices were made. I admire the big swing here and how many options I'm given each run. When I do find the groove with a run, I can keep playing battle after battle. I'm going to rate this a 6.5, with the caveat that this game is still technically in early access, while also having been in development for several years, while also being made largely by one person. So just remember all of that. I think this game has a ton of potential. It's, you know, already been worked on for a long time, and I think it's got a pretty hefty roadmap ahead of it as well. So it's playable on PC.
Alrighty. I guess I have one question and one observation. My first observation is that you pointed to it in the menus, that there's a lot of reading, and those menus look like classic MMORPG games that I just had just shut my brain off immediately. I was just like, no thanks. You play it. I don't want to even talk about it. So definitely gave me like those sort of vibes in my brain, just sort of set off those hair triggers. I'm just like, I don't know if I want to touch this one.
There were menus at first that I focused on because they were the more important ones, like where do I get healed and where do I repair my equipment? And then I almost got tunnel vision because I just focused on those and I didn't pay attention to any of the adjacent menus. And then the more I played, the more I felt comfortable with digging through, but I didn't want to do all that at first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned that each character you play has like a backstory. Sort of our requirement for reviewing a game on Underplayed, not a it's a loose requirement, is that we reach credits. Like that's sort of like the minimum.
Yes.
Without spoiling, like what does that look like? Is there story in this game, or is it just like this is your avatar's backstory and it's nothing more than text on a screen?
I'd say the backstory you get when you start your character is the story that I could tell. But here's another caveat. I've not reached the credits or the end of the game with any character yet. And here's how it works. When you get a character, you get a random backstory from like an archive or a list of backstories. And each character with each backstory has like pros and cons. Like this one, because you are a slave, all 50% of the gold you make is deducted after each battle. But a pro is that I can't think of a pro, but they all have pros and cons. And for each archetype, each backstory, there is a certain win condition.
Mhm.
So for the slave, I think the slaves is you have to accrue 100,000 fame currency to prove that you're now famous, you've earned your freedom.
Mhm.
But another character might have to earn enough gold to buy their freedom. Or I saw one that was like, you have to, those 4 patrons that sponsor each of the fights, you have to win like 80% favor with each of the 4 patrons or something like that.
Oh.
So you have to be really mindful about which battles you're choosing so that you're not ignoring one over the other. And I just, up to this point, I have not been able to satisfy any of the backstories requirements. They've all been pretty tough.
Yeah.
So I just haven't had the time.
Stacked against you the game. Yes.
Kind of, yeah. And I actually wasn't paying attention to the win condition until like a few runs ago,
Yeah.
too. I was focusing on learning the game
Yeah.
for like much of it. So.
I think that different type of win condition sounds really cool, and it changes up the variety
I love that it's different. Yeah.
Yeah, it changes your focus for the run too,
Yes.
which I think is kind of fun. Because if like your win condition is gold, it's like you're a little bit more conservative in the shots.
Yeah. So like you make different decisions, which I really like. Because like other roguelikes, like Hades, you're trying to get to Hades.
Yeah.
You're trying to get to that boss fight at the end. And your decisions are, what is my build going to be? How am I going to react to what the game is giving me? And here it's my end goal is different. How am I going to make decisions to get me to that end goal that might be completely different from my last character? So I really admire all those, and I haven't seen all the backstories yet, so there could be really interesting ones that I haven't stumbled
I would
across
imagine
yet.
a game like this probably has over 1,000.
It could be. It could be dozens, hundreds. When you start a new character, you can re-roll a character if you don't like their backstory too. So like you're not stuck with the one that the game spits out to you too, which
Cool.
is awesome. So yeah, those are our secret games, Young Souls and We Who Are About to Die. Let's move on to our review of Castle Crashers Remastered. It is our featured game. Castle Crashers Remastered is a hack and slash beat 'em up game. The remastered version of this game first came out in 2015 for Xbox One and Steam. The PS4 and Switch versions would follow in 2019, but the original version of this game came out in 2008. This game was developed by the Behemoth, and it was published by the Behemoth for the more modern versions of the game. The game synopsis from the Switch storefront for Castle Crashers Remastered reads, quote, hack, slash, and smash your way to victory in this remastered edition of the popular 2D arcade adventure from the behemoth. At 60 frames per second, Castle Crashers Remastered delivers high-res visuals like nothing you've seen before. Up to 4 friends can play locally or online and save your princess, defend your kingdom, and crash some castles, end quote. This is an up to 4-player co-op game. Each player is controlling a knight with different strengths. This game takes place in a kingdom where is it a necromancer? It's like a wizard.
Yeah, that's the necromancer.
The necromancer steals a crystal from the king and kidnaps 4 princesses. And the castle crashers fight through levels with a medieval fantasy theme to defeat bosses and free those princesses and stop the necromancer. That's really all I could say to set up like the non-gameplay part of this game.
Yeah.
The game starts and the knights are like having a party, and then the party's interrupted because the necromancer's
Yeah.
disturbing everybody's fun and is
Yeah.
kidnapping these princesses.
No more reverie.
Yeah, exactly. And so you just start right from this moment that you're having this party, and you start fighting the minions of the necromancer, and you go through, I don't know how many levels it is, maybe like a couple dozen.
Yeah, something like 24 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to gameplay, what's going on?
So it's another hack and slash game. Think of your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, your Scott Pilgrims, your games like that where you get to play as 4 different players and you get to beat 'em up. But instead of using your fists and kicks and stuff, you have swords. You also have each character has a different magic ability. So we mentioned at the top of the show, I played as the Green Knight. He has poison magic. The Red Knight has electric magic, and so on and so forth for each different knight, as well as more than a dozen, almost probably 2 dozen unlockable characters that you can play as well. And each of them has different magic. But that's really where the differences in characters come in. Is just the kind of magic that they use and what they look like. Otherwise, I think everything is basically identical. But yeah, and then you also have a light attack, a heavy attack, you have a jump, and you can use that to toss enemies into the air and keep them in the air. We've mentioned the Castle Crashers juggling on a couple different episodes of Underplayed. We finally get to experience it firsthand for the show. And you also have an extra equipable weapon that you can cycle through. So it's either your bow and arrow or maybe the sandwich that will increase your strength and prevent you from getting knocked down. But it's also on a timer. Or your boomerang or your, this it's just bombs.
Yeah.
Your healing potion is on this cycle slot as
Yeah, you
well.
have tons of usables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you use all of those gameplay options to make your way through all the different levels. You level up and you use points from leveling up to increase your strength, defense, agility, or magic. You also have a shield, but I don't use that very often.
Yeah, I forgot to use the shield a lot. We can also find animal orbs.
Ooh, yes, the animal orbs. So the animal orbs are different collectibles that you find throughout the world. They are super deformed animals
Yes.
that give you some sort of passive ability. So there is a hawk that I think will just do extra damage to enemies. There's like a cat that helps you jump higher. There is the giraffe that helps you level up more. So there's a lot of different options there.
And there are a handful of bosses. We're mainly just making our way to the bosses. And after each main boss, there's a princess. And if you're playing co-op, you kind of have a moment after defeating the boss where you fight each other to be able to kiss the princess.
Yeah, we gladiatorial each other to the death to kiss the princess.
I guess We Who Are About to Die has more in common with this game than I thought. There's a little bit of synergy there.
Yeah.
Then this game is just a huge financial success ahead of the PS4 and Switch versions. So this is back in like maybe 2018, 2019. The Behemoth reported 20 million copies of Castle Crashers had been sold since 2008 when the original came out.
That doesn't surprise me.
That's huge. It doesn't surprise me either because everybody knows about this game. This is not an underplayed game, right? This is one of those featured games that is just, it's in the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
People know what this game is, but this game is highly associated with the success of the Xbox Live Arcade service when that released in 2008. This is what I would consider one of those OG indies.
Same, yeah.
Right? It's like there at the very beginning when we were getting lots of those early games. And just to quickly note the differences in Castle Crashers Remastered versus the old version. Remastered has better visuals and performance, improvements to gameplay, and a mini game called Back Off Barbarian, which
we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it briefly later. Let's set the scene of the co-op sessions. Who played this game with us, Disco?
All right. So many of our regular listeners happen to catch the streams, which we are really grateful for. Thanks for hanging out with us as we stream our co-op games at twitch.tv/underplayed podcast, where we play all of our featured co-op games and premiere all of our episodes. Anyways, more on that at the end. But we played with Grant of Halloween Party Coffee fame.
I thought you were going to say we played with Grant of Grant?
Of Grant fame.
Of Grant fame?
This is the same Grant that we talk about in the Soma episode.
Yes.
Having trouble finding the tracer fluid. He played Castle Crashers with us, and I believe he was the one that told me about the game because he was an Xbox kid when it came out, and I was a PlayStation 3 guy.
So I remember he was also really into Limbo back in the day.
Yeah. So like there's a lot of those like OG indie games I'm learning about from him, honestly.
Sure.
And playing them at his house because we used to hang out at Grant's all the time.
So that's a very poetic guest.
Yeah, I'm glad that he was able to make the time. He also has big dad energy now, so it's not necessarily easy for him to get out either. But yeah, we played with Grant of Coffee fame, and then we played with my other brother, the other twin, who is going by Takebacks.
Yeah. So again, awesome that you could get both your brothers in on the games today. And before we move on, we just want to say thank you to both Grant and Takebacks, because that's the kind of thing I would forget to do.
Yeah, it's certainly a time commitment. So
it is.
We're very grateful.
Thank you guys for joining us. And it was super fun playing with them. And then we have a couple sound bites from our play sessions. The first one kind of shows how Takebacks was owning a lot of the game and was carrying us.
Yeah, he did a lot of practicing ahead of the streams, which he's also just good at games in general anyways, but he was leveled up all the way to 20 and another character before we started playing, which is no small feat.
Wait, what's how do I check what things do?
We have to leave the level to do it.
Well, F that.
Or,
F that.
Wikipedia,
Oh, yes, that's what I do during a beat-em-up game is Wikipedia.
I always leave a browser tab open to the Castle Crashers wiki. Helps me play the game.
Damn it, we're both down back here. Okay.
Why is my sword made of jello right now?
Okay, you're the only one, Takebacks.
Figures.
What else is new?
What else is new? Carrying the team.
Okay, no, I'm looking up exactly what it says.
Wow, my shoulders, they hurt. Carrying 2 grown men.
What we forgot to tell you is that Nick Cage and Christopher Walken also showed up for a brief cameo on our stream.
Yeah, we were being very goofy, so that's all the context you need. And then I had played Castle Crashers years ago, the original one from 2008.
Yeah.
So had Disco.
All of us had, yeah.
All of us had. So this was just, reminiscent experience for us. I don't think I had ever finished the game, but I had played a lot of it. But as I'm going through, I'm kind of relearning the game. I'm relearning the enemies particularly. And this is an instance of my teammates very helpfully giving me advice on what exactly the boss is in this situation.
Stop.
Come on, damn it!
Stop.
Live!
Good God. Go down.
You're not gonna die on me, damn it!
I'm just now noticing that he has a life bar, so I'm less stressed about it. But, like, good Lord.
I still can't tell what the boss is.
He's the tornado.
The
Anytime
tornado
you see
guy.
the tornado, it's him.
He's got a flag.
Oh,
and,
okay.
The ram.
Got it.
the
I was
ram
not
head is
processing
following
that that's
him.
one of them. I thought that was just part of the environment. That's where I'm at. I'm blasting off, by the way. I'm like a quarter. I'm a quarter lit.
I'm working on it.
I think that illustrates that I'm not very perceptive at some of the enemies, but also that there's a lot going on.
There's a
when
lot
you
of
have
visual chaos.
a lot of visual chaos with 4 players specifically. So yeah, we played this whole game with partners. That was fun. DiscoCola, let's go into your thoughts on Castle Crashers Remastered.
Yeah, my thoughts on Castle Crashers Remastered. It's a titan in the indie game space, one of my firsts. I might have played it before Limbo. It was either this or Limbo, I think.
Wow.
So yeah, it has a special place in my heart. It is a part of me. It has
Part of your body.
crashed into me.
Has Castle crashed your body?
Yes, exactly. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I like about Castle Crashers, and I'd be really curious to talk to myself, 15 years ago and see how I felt then versus now. But here's what I like about Castle Crashers. I really like the character selection of the game. The original Castle Crashers just had the default 4, so you get those DLC nights added automatically, but even just those original 4, it's a really great selection. You're color-coded, you're Power Rangers.
Yes, yeah,
and
you are.
you just get to unlock so many more, just about any enemy type you encounter. If it's the same general, like, big head on a stupid small body,
Yes.
you can unlock that character for the most part. So just seeing a character model and be like, oh, I really love the way this one looks, you can probably unlock it and play as it later. So I really love that Castle Crashers gives you that option. I also really like that despite being a game called Castle Crashers and being set in a medieval world, that you actually have a huge variety of place settings to visit. So we're not only in a castle, we're not only, fighting barbarians outside, but we're also visiting the desert. We're also in sunken, like, Greek ruins, and we're also in an alien UFO.
Yeah, there are aliens in this game.
Yeah. So
you're in the tundra.
Yeah, you get to go to a ton of different kinds of places that probably couldn't coexist together in a
Right.
geographical space that close, but
no one's paying attention to the,
don't
the
question the
plausibility
science.
of that. Yeah.
But I do just love having all those different, because you get to experience quicksand, you get to slip on ice, you get to walk through deep water. So you get all of those gameplay elements. And it feels mostly natural to the identity of the game. I like the music. I think it's really upbeat and fun, and it really matches the vibes. I especially like the song that got part of our VOD muted, which is in the Thieves' Forest. That's actually
Yeah.
my favorite song from that game, and
That was a bummer when that happens.
I sing it sometimes to myself for no reason. I think that this game is kind of silly, and sometimes that's what I'm in the mood for. I'm in the mood for something just a little bit silly. Whether or not it goes a little bit too far sometimes for who I am these days, I can maybe talk about that a little bit later. But if you're in a silly mood and you want to play a beat 'em up, Castle Crashers might be the one to play. Also, going off of that, I think it has a consistency of identity from beginning to end. You do have that silliness. There's like absurdist characters that are just like fun to interact with. I'm thinking of like the knight that's about to marry one of the kidnapped princesses, and his father being a boss later.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're absurdist, but they also fit in with the same world that has these we'll call them rocket propelled deers. Like it all just makes sense together. So I really love that it is consistent in its own identity. And then consistency of mechanics. I mentioned this already, but it's a lot like Power Rangers. Each playable character has that set base. Like you're all the same in this way, and then you're different in this one way. But, everything works the same for everybody. You just have a different cool color or a different cool design, and you have a different magic that almost no one else is going to have. Some characters have the same magic, but
Yeah, usually if we were commenting on each other's, like what we each brought to the table, it wasn't about our skill levels. It was about, oh, Disco, you can use poison.
yeah,
Bopo, you can use lightning.
mostly it was Bopo. You can use lightning,
Right.
But
And then takebacks can use ice.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure what Grant's magic
Fire.
was. Fire, just fire
Fire,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
so burn maybe. But yeah, you just have that like one variable, and it matches the visual identity of the character that you're playing as, and it's fun to have that same base come from the same base, but then also have just one or two varying properties. Whereas other games you might be like totally different, where let's say maybe River City Girls, like you're mostly the same, but as you start unlocking moves, they're pretty different from each other.
Yeah.
So sometimes I prefer the more sanitized, samey kind of character design. We mentioned this, but pitting friends against each other is a fun little break every once in a while. Just fighting your friends to kiss the princess. That can be just a fun little break, a fun little like way to bring a little Monopoly energy to the room.
Yeah. It's the mini games from It Takes Two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just poking each other a little bit. You get to use your cool skills on each other, and that's just kind of fun. I like that this is a pioneer in indie beat 'em ups. I think this really paved the way for other games to come, like Scott Pilgrim, which is maybe not technically indie, or like River City Girls, which even though it comes from another franchise, I feel like has a lot in common with Castle Crashers,
Yeah.
or even Young Souls, especially Young Souls. I think there's a lot Young Souls is drawing from Castle Crashers, at least in terms of like actual physical controls.
I was noticing that in the trailer. Like it looked, when you're juggling stuff in Young Souls, it's like, wow, Castle Crashers is influential.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree. And even like Chenso Club, which is like a totally different kind of game, you still get that like juggling enemies, and I see it all coming from Castle Crashers personally. And then just juggling enemies is one of my favorite things to do in games.
Mhm.
That's my
Right.
last and probably biggest like of the game. I do have dislikes, of course. I don't think the comedy style really holds up. I think this is the nature of a lot of comedy, but I don't see this game as really timeless as I might have maybe even just 7 or 10 years ago. It doesn't really hold up for me. Maybe I'm just like old and crusty.
Well, at the time, this was so unlike anything else.
Oh, sure.
In a video game.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, we've never gotten this before. Of course, this is going to hold up. You know?
But it just there's a lot about it that's a little too silly. I'm like, okay, this is very much of its time and place on the young internet, Newgrounds kind of thing.
Yes.
Like we've mentioned in River City Girls and Young Souls, getting on the same plane as an enemy is just a drag. I actually think this might be the worst of the ones that I've played. I just can't find it this time around. Like
I know.
I don't even remember having this much trouble when I played it before on the PS3, but it was rough.
I
this
think
time.
we all shared that frustration. I remember Grant saying over and over again, like, I can't hit the enemies. Like, I'm standing right next to them. I can't hit. I was saying that too.
Yeah.
We don't have a sound bite for this, but we could have picked from dozens of sound bites of people just going like, why am I not hitting them?
Yeah, I remember when I was going through it, you were like, I'm trying to look at the shadows of the enemies and trying to line that up. But I'm like,
they also move constantly. They like jitter up and down.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm looking at the Blue Knight right now. Like I can't even keep track of my own body, let alone the shadows.
Because again, a lot is happening.
Yeah. I think this game has too many bosses that essentially like teleport. Like the corn boss doesn't actually teleport, but he does. And the ice wizard teleports, and the final bosses teleport. And it just sort of, it makes me feel like when we're spending our level up points, that it's pretty irrelevant because we're just getting 2 hits in at a time, and then the boss is gone. And we're
Right.
getting 2 more hits in at a time, and the boss is gone again.
Yeah.
And then they get faster as you deplete their HP. So it just gets really frustrating. So I don't think that many bosses need to be teleporting.
No, that's a great observation because I was noticing like these bosses feel like cowards. Like the more you whittle down their health, the more they teleport. And that's just extending the time sort of artificially.
Exactly. It's
of this
such a
boss fight.
drag. It's
Yeah.
I'm getting bored in a
Yeah,
boss
it kind
fight.
of kills the flow.
That's not what
Yeah,
you want.
Right.
Kind of going off of that, I think the game could probably be about 30% shorter. Like, I praised all the different place settings, but do we really need the desert? Or does the
Yeah.
desert need to be that long? It kind of feels like 3 levels worth of desert.
Yeah, there's some areas that feel certainly longer than others. That's interesting about like the shorter length. I don't know that I have an opinion on whether I want this game to be longer or shorter or the same, but this game was shorter than I expected it to be at the same time.
I don't think it was shorter than I expected it to be. I think we got through it faster than I expected us to.
So we were better.
Yeah, I was
More
expecting a
efficient.
lot of failure because I remember failing a lot,
Mhm.
dying a lot, especially in the ice world.
And I remember failing a lot, but more so on the solo side.
Yeah,
And I had not played through the whole game with a team, so I wasn't really sure.
yeah. But yeah, I think, I don't know, I need a little less desert. Do we even need to do the corn section at all? Like, do we need the pirate ship? There were a couple of like pretty forgettable levels that could have just been cut from the game, I think. I don't really like the mini games, any of them. I think the game is strong enough on its own. We don't need Back Off Barbarian in this version. We didn't need the volleyball game on the, old version of Castle Crashers. Like, I don't think those are necessary. The arena's pretty cool if you liked fighting your friends. So that's kind of neat. But I don't think the mini games are necessary. I think playing them within the level of the game is enough, and then just be done with it. I think the level cap for each character is way too high, and there's no real reward for it. It's just like extra completionist nonsense. Like
Yeah.
every knight levels up to 99, and you've spec'd all your, different strengths well before that. So if you're like,
I did not know that.
yeah, if you're a completionist and you're wanting to finish leveling up everybody,
Gosh.
that's
Yeah.
going to take
Lots of grinding.
forever.
Yeah.
There's like 24 different characters too, and it doesn't need to be 99. It could have been like 50 tops.
40, yeah.
So many of these beat 'em up games are like 30 is the max level, 40 is the max level, and that's mostly reasonable. Just it is too high. So yeah, Castle Crashers is, in my opinion, probably a must play for most indie game players, and a must beat for a few. As far as I can tell, this game paved the way for other indie beat 'em ups like River City Girls, Chenzo Club, and especially my secret game, Young Souls. So I'm grateful to it for that, no matter what. It is a classic, and much of its gameplay still holds up. However, it is also certainly representative of its time and place on the internet, and a jaded, crusty 30-something father like myself can't really feel the same way about it as I did as a teenager. All the same, this game is comfortable in its own skin and goes a long
Yeah.
way, and it provides a character for most fans' favorite elemental skills, which scratches that Digimon Power Rangers kind of part of my brain. Castle Crashers Remastered is just slightly higher than Young Souls on my top 100 and earns the same score, an 8.0 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Well, you and I share lots of thoughts. As I just share my overall thoughts, you're going to hear a lot of the same things. But I think foremost, what I love about this game is that it's just very straightforward. It just wants to be fun, and it wants you to have fun. There's very little setup. This game has the thinnest of plots. The stakes are very clear, like princesses kidnapped, go save them.
Mario. Yeah.
Exactly. Crystal's gone. Bad necromancer bad. The handful of main characters are, very obvious colors. I love the Power Rangers comparison. Yes, that is totally what's going on. The visuals are quite fun. The characters are very expressive. I love when we get a lot of emotion through the eyes and the mouths of these characters. The designs of the animal orbs are adorable. Love all those animal orbs. There's quite a lot of depth with the playable characters as far as like the strengths and abilities. There's common ground between all these characters. We can all use the bow and arrow. We can all juggle enemies. We can all, use melee and stuff. But then the abilities, I think, are where the gameplay shine because, some characters are going to have projectiles that cover the whole width of the screen, and other characters are better close up. And that justifies the different character choices. Leveling up feels really good. I love getting to the end of the level and having points and, ooh, I get to be better now. And I feel myself getting quite powerful as I invest those points. And sometimes it's hard to know what to invest points into. I know that my red knight has really powerful lightning skills, so I want to just start dumping points into my magic. But then also I'm envious of some of my teammates who are more agile and moving faster. And so I want to put more points into agility. And so I'm balancing things out. When it's hard to make a choice, you have a lot of good choices in your stats. I also love the co-op experience specifically, far more than the solo experience in this game. I think this game is foremost for co-op. I would not encourage a new player to play solo. I think you should just jump in with friends, and I think that is how most people do play this game. But this is another soundbite. This is when we're rooting for takebacks at the end of a boss fight.
No.
Oh God. Oh dear. Oh dear. You got this. You could just finish off the boss probably.
With that tongue? In this economy? Oh God. Okay, there's more.
Oh
Okay.
dear. Oh dear.
You can do it. You can
Oh my That was legit.
Yes, dude.
So it just gives us that fun opportunity to cheer each other on and to admire when someone can carry a fight for the other three. So that was at the end of Pipistrello. There's
There he is.
There he
There
is.
he is.
There's the mention.
And that
Again.
that rooting and hollering you're hearing is takebacks leveling up.
Yes, takebacks leveling up at the end of the boss fight. Just the cherry on top, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, love that. And then I get to my dislikes. The personality of this game just doesn't speak to me. It's not just that it's silly and carefree, because tons of the games we've played on this show are silly and carefree. And I love that. I chase that feeling a lot in games. It's that this game goes a step farther in feeling kind of like, a middle schooler's sleepover.
That's a great.
It's like a
way to put it.
Monster Energy infused romp through a cartoon.
Oh man, when this came out, Monster was like new. That was new.
And I'm sure there were middle school sleepovers where Monster had a part. And middle schoolers played this game at the same time. Lining up enemies on the same plane can be frustrating. Here's this note again. This is another soundbite. This is part of what makes this boss fight not fun, but this soundbite is called "This Isn't Fun." And it's one of those bosses that's teleporting around, and it's really hard to hit because getting on the same plane is easier said than done.
I can't even hit this dude.
I know. We just can't hit him.
He's so fast.
He's so fast.
It's so fast and
I'm
it's so
so
hard to get the
slow.
depth right.
This is not fun. I'm just gonna say that.
It's just.
I'm
Dude,
completely
someone's
guessing
doing
on where to
62
shoot.
damage to him right now.
I want to say it's.
That's
from-
me. That's me when I can hit him, which is 5% of the time. So, am I really doing that much?
It also extends to digging with the shovel on dig spots. Like, this game just doesn't want you to connect with things unless you're very precise.
Yeah.
Those dig spots in the ground, the X's in the ground, you have to like perfectly line up your shovel with
Yeah.
it. You can't just be close enough. You have to be exactly on. The game doesn't hold up in solo play, in my opinion. I was playing this game a little bit to practice before playing in co-op, and I was trying some of the levels that I knew because we had already played them. I was getting cornered by enemies. They were juggling me. I was getting trapped in a cycle of enemy A hits me, then I recover, then enemy B hits me, I recover, enemy C hits me, I recover. Now it's time for enemy A to hit me, and I'm getting so frustrated when I play this game solo because it doesn't feel like the game is tailored for one player versus four players. It just seems like the same game. And how many players do you have? Oh, that's the same gameplay. It just happens to be that you have more players. So that just doesn't feel fair to me. Just want to pause here. Is that your experience too with solo play?
So I don't remember solo being so rough back in the original. Like I don't remember struggling that hard. And I played after the fact too to get toward unlocking my favorite character the other night. And I was actually like breezing through it for the most part. I haven't gotten to the zone before the tundra, which is
Okay.
where you get really overwhelmed with a lot of enemies. So we'll see. But so far, I was doing okay solo.
Well, I'm going to jump ahead to a soundbite I was going to play later, but this is when we interviewed Takebacks and Grant about some of their observations. I think they had something to say about this too.
I guess just like if you have any observations about playing this game solo versus with other people,
Oh, man,
any other
it's
thoughts on that?
So much more of an enjoyable
I'm good.
experience with other people.
Yeah.
Playing solo, you do
You're
end
not-
up it is a lot harder to play in solo because you get super frustrated when you're pitted against 4
Raging.
or 6 or 8 enemies, and they just surround you, and there's no good way to get out of it. And it's nice when you have other people having your back, also swinging emptily on an empty plane. Just we're all there swinging in vain together.
So I'm not alone, but maybe it's that we're just not as good at the game in solo play. That could be
I
it.
don't know.
But yeah, I just don't have as much fun, I guess is what it comes down to when I'm playing solo. So
Well, and then when you're playing with a co-op partner, like you can revive. Like that's a game changer.
yeah, that
too.
is huge. That is absolutely huge. Nothing revives you when you're playing solo. I have a laundry list of things that just aren't communicated well. Like when you pick up a new animal orb, what does it do? How do I know I should run with this? I have to run back to that like Noah's Ark place to even check. I don't like going to the animal and then running to the chalkboard for it to tell me, like, why is that how it tells me? What will these characters do when you pick them on the select screen? I don't know that the red knight is lightning focused. I would have thought the orange knight is lightning focused and that the red knight is fire focused. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you pick these characters with assumptions and then you don't know what kind of magic they'll have or how their upgrades will happen. What enemies are weak to what? How much health do enemies have left? Yeah, I want that.
Yeah.
If we can see our own health bars, I want to be able to see the enemy's health bars.
That would be nice.
And sometimes you're unleashing powerful attacks on just one enemy that's left, and you just want that enemy to be dead so you can move on, and you can only hit it so many times before it like recovers, and you can hit it again. And you're just hitting that enemy over and over, and I just want to know how much is left. Are my attacks hitting? That's
Yeah.
another question I have. You know, like is what I'm, especially in 4-player situations with everything happening, are my attacks connecting?
Yeah,
You
I
know,
see the numbers,
all
but
the
are they
numbers
mine?
overlapping,
Yeah.
and it's just chaos. So I could probably list more, but overall, Castle Crashers Remastered is so much better with friends than playing solo. It is fun. I think this game is fun, but I think it's what I call shallow fun.
Yeah.
I think of other activities that are shallow fun. Here are some examples of other shallow fun activities. Apples to Apples is shallow fun.
Yep.
Solitaire is shallow fun. Playing with one of those bounce back paddle balls is shallow fun. You know, the ball on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
string with the paddle.
Waiting in a small lazy river.
Yeah.
Shallow. Fun.
That's very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I tried really hard.
No, thank you for that. So all these things are fun, but they're shallow fun. That's what I think this game is. Its personality feels a little bit sophomoric for me as well, but I appreciate the confidence of its visual style. Like you said, it is very consistent. It knows what kind of style it wants to have, and it owns that. And so that's something to respect too. I land on a 6 out of 10
All
for
right.
Castle Crashers Remastered.
6.0 out of 10.
And that's not to say that I didn't love playing it with other people. I'm really just looking at the game and, the enjoyment that I get out of it. I think like I almost separate the enjoyment I have with other people, like the conversations, the observations, being on Discord chat with those guys. That's part of the enjoyment of the game, but the game itself for me is a 6. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. Like one of the activities we used to do at Grants all the time was play Rock Band. And I had fun hanging out with my friends. I hate playing Rock Band, dude.
That's fair.
But I just separate them.
Yeah.
It's an easy thing to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So we sort of mentioned this a little bit in our overall thoughts and our likes and our dislikes, but this game has a definitive vibe, of definitive identity. We kind of called it sophomoric. We called it silly. I think maybe we sort of implied, but how does it feel now versus 2008 or 2009, whenever we played it?
When it comes to like the vibe identity part, it feels like I'm stepping into a time machine a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The look is of a particular time of animation and online entertainment. And this is where we could mention the Newgrounds feeling.
Have we not even said Newgrounds yet in this episode?
I don't know that we have, but this is very much tied into that feeling of, the 2000s. Newgrounds was the hub for animators who were up and coming and making content that people really enjoyed before like the popular days of YouTube even. This was a haven for animation, and this game has that style that you would see on Newgrounds. And this is something that our co-op partners also observed when we got their overall thoughts.
I really like the art style. This is very and it's just like very Newgroundsy, but that's something that I think was
kind of
really
charming,
popular.
right?
No, I like it a lot. I don't know, it gives like a cozy, and it's funny, and it's silly, and it's ridiculous. And I thought that the art for this was something that I enjoyed.
Yeah. And Takebacks and we both had dial-up internet until pretty much the end of the Newgrounds era.
2006 or 7.
It was way later. It was 2010 because I was paying for it. So that's like near the end of Newgrounds era. So like, what does this mean to you? Does Newgrounds mean anything to you, Takebacks? Like what does this mean to you visually? Do you understand any of it?
Nothing with just Newgrounds. I just kind of like the comic-y look to all of the art, and mainly just the characters, I suppose. But when it comes to Newgrounds, I never got into it. So
right. Yeah, same. Everything I knew about Newgrounds, I actually learned from Grant, to be honest.
Oh man, to be a middle schooler on the internet.
So I think he sums it up really well at the end there as far as like the feeling. But did you have any observations on how it feels? I guess I didn't touch on the gameplay part, but personality wise, I think that's what you're hitting on.
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
right? Yeah. Any thoughts from your end?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it in my overall thoughts, but it just visually, like you said, it's like stepping into a time machine. It is very much of its time. And, I would have thought that sophomore comedy like that was a little bit more timeless.
Yeah.
Because I think about a lot of the Will Ferrell and Jim Carrey type movies that I already also don't like very much in the first place. But there's something a little bit more timeless about them. Like, if you watch Dumb and Dumber, the biggest thing that seems out of place is like payphones. I think there's like a payphone or two in that movie. But really otherwise, like, it just seems like timeless sophomore comedy. But I don't know, something seems different about Castle, because it's like, it's playing into that time and space where like, oh, here's a pink squirrel and he's vibrating. It's just like random comedy. You know,
that is yes.
That had a moment and it didn't last forever. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, and I think the epitome of that style is at the end of the game where we save the last princess. This is our reaction to the end of the game
Yeah.
where something like that does happen.
Who's first?
Okay, if
Who's
y'all haven't seen this ending, you better get ready, because you're not gonna want to
I've
miss
not
it.
seen
It's great.
I don't know if it ages well, but it is certainly
Oh,
something.
probably not. Probably not. I'm going to guess that it doesn't.
It is certainly something.
Okay, what happens?
Gee.
Yeah, I got the
He's
trophy.
a clown. What? I'm so confused.
Yep, you sure are. Welcome to Newgrounds circa 2007. Actually,
Yeah.
probably like circa 2005.
Isn't this like the funniest thing you've ever seen?
I'm cackling right now.
I can hear it.
Same.
Basically, instead of a princess, you get a dancing pink squirrel
Yeah.
clown, or it's a clown.
It's a clown.
It's a
And then
clown.
there's like squirrels, and some of the animal orbs fly across the screen. It's just,
Yeah, it's just very anticlimactic,
random
goofy,
stuff.
random. Yeah. So I don't know, just not my favorite thing.
And then I guess I'm curious, like, what do you see as the potential of the game? Like, how does this compare to your experience like 10 plus years ago? Because I'll say that playing online is a totally different experience. Like, I guess technically when I played it before, I did play it online, but we
Oh,
were
you
all
did?
yeah,
Yeah.
but we were all in the same house. Because like me and both of my brothers had our own PlayStation 3s at that point.
So you're all in different rooms.
We're all in different rooms, but we're in the same house. So some of the connection issues that we had weren't as much of an issue for some reason. But just overall, like, Takeback's room was just in the next room. Like, his wall was adjacent to mine. So I'm playing in there with my then girlfriend, who I'm now married to. So we're playing on my television, and Quokka is actually adjacent to my room. Quokka is playing in the other room adjacent to us, and Takebacks is upstairs. So it's just
Right.
a little bit easier to communicate, fewer connection issues, and just like being able to meet up a little bit easier
Yeah.
and talk shop, I guess.
Sure. I remember playing 10 plus years ago. I only played, I think, in the same room so I did like couch co-op stuff.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised at how well the online worked. So I think that's something that has just improved over time with, the internet infrastructure. But also this game, I think, is meant to perform better overall than the original version.
Mhm.
I'm talking about remastered here. But
Yep.
I found the gameplay to be mostly seamless here. And I really appreciated that. So most of my frustrations just had to do with like the DNA of the game, the core of the game, which has been there since day one. But otherwise, yeah, it's exactly the same as what I remember, which is pretty much like the shallow fun
Yeah.
that I was having back then. So we've already touched on the solo versus co-op stuff a lot, but looking at the solo content, there is Back Off Barbarian, and we've both touched this. This is a bonus mode. There's a trophy associated with this where you have to survive 2.5 minutes without getting killed. It's basically you're on this board, and you have to.
It's like a grid board.
It's a grid board. You have to avoid advancing enemies who want to stomp on your head, and you have to use your controller. You have to use like buttons that correspond with the spaces adjacent to you to move your character. And I kind of cheesed this.
Yeah.
This is a very frustrating trophy.
Yeah.
You've already tried it, right?
I've attempted it a couple times, sort of. But the really the thing that makes it extra hard is that you want to move maybe to the tile that's right adjacent to you, but you don't hit right to move right. You
No.
have to hit up, and it's randomized every time you move.
Yeah.
So it's
not very intuitive.
it's stomping on your brain internally while you're trying to avoid getting stomped
It
on.
is. It's like that challenge where you read the name of a color, but the color of that color is different than the color.
Yeah. Or maybe like reading mirrored text. I can read
Sure.
upside down, but I can't read mirrored text. That throws me through a loop.
So I was able to do this, but it was frustrating as heck. I had doubts about my ability to do it. And what got me through was eventually I got to like the 2-minute mark. And this is when tons of enemies are approaching you. It gets exponentially harder and harder as you go. And I was pausing the game to look at the grid. When you pause the game, it still shows you the grid with what button corresponds to what space. So I was pausing after every move to look at my next move, unpausing, making that move, and then pausing again. And I used that to creep up to the 2.5 minutes.
That's
So
how you do it, baby.
that would be my suggestion to you if you get stuck on Back Off Barbarian. Back Off Barbarian is nearly Pumpkinhead Guy for me
Oh,
in terms of
yeah.
like frustration.
I can see
and
that,
like,
yeah.
Well, that is our review of Castle Crashers Remastered. You can play it on PC, Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. DiscoCola rated it an 8. I rated it a 6. That's the end of this episode of Underplayed. You can find more of our episodes at kzum.org/underplayed and on common podcast platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Our music was composed by Jack Rodenberg. Our art comes from Onimochi. Underplayed is on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at UnderplayedPod. You can find me in those places at Bopo. That's BO_PO.
I am in all of those places to varying degrees as well. Underplayed is also on Twitch, twitch.tv/underplayedpodcast, where we played all of these Castle Crasher streams, and we do early premieres of our episodes on the Mondays prior to release. So check us out there.
Next time, we'll have 2 more secret games to review, and our featured game will be Super Meat Boy, a precision platformer developed by Team Meat. Until then, everyone, keep on playing.